The late afternoon sun stretched across my office, spilling gold across the framed blueprints on the wall. My phone buzzed once, an insistent vibration that rattled the edge of my desk. I almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. "Sam, it's Mom." Her voice, clipped and urgent, carried that old undercurrent of command I'd known since childhood. "We need to talk about your sister." A slow ache tightened behind my ribs. I swiveled my leather chair toward the floor-to-ceiling window, the Chicago skyline glowing against a pale September sky. "What about Rachel?" I asked, keeping my voice even. "She's in trouble again. Credit cards. Car loan. You know how she is." A sigh, then the words dropped like a gavel. "We've decided you should pay off her debts, and she'll move back into the house. Our house. You owe us for everything we've done for you." For a heartbeat, only the quiet hum of the city answered. I traced a fingertip over the smooth silk of my blouse, grounding myself in the texture. Years ago, that command might have drawn an immediate yes. Today, it tasted like rust on my tongue. "I owe you," I repeated, letting the words roll out slowly, almost curious. Mom didn't flinch. "Yes. We sacrificed plenty so you could succeed. It's time you returned the favor." I stared at the skyline until the sun's reflection blurred. The old wound throbbed, but beneath it, something steadier rose. Not this time. I was 22 the night the last thread between us frayed. The kitchen smelled of burnt coffee and lemon cleaner, the scent of late-night arguments. Dad leaned against the counter, arms crossed, while Mom gripped the edge of the sink as though the porcelain might steady her. Rachel sat slouched at the table, eyeliner smudged like storm clouds, a credit card bill clutched in her hand. "She didn't mean to overdraw again," Mom said, her voice sharp with a tired sort of pleading. "You can help her, Samantha. You have that new job." "A temp job," I cut in, my throat tightening. "And I'm already behind on rent. You can't keep expecting me to clean up her messes." Rachel's eyes narrowed. "You think you're better than me because you're in some downtown office now." My hands trembled. I curled them into fists so no one would see. "I think I'm tired of being your safety net." Dad's jaw hardened. "Family helps family. That's what we do." I felt the words like a verdict, heavy and unyielding. But beneath the weight, a small, fierce voice rose. "Who helps me?" Grandma Evelyn's silver bracelet, a delicate chain I wore even then, caught the light as I lifted my chin. Her voice echoed from a memory of quiet porch talks. "Don't let guilt decide your life, sweetheart. Your worth isn't measured by what you sacrifice." The bracelet felt cool against my pulse, a quiet reminder that love didn't mean losing myself. "I'm sorry," I said, though the apology wasn't for them. "I won't pay her bills. Not this time. Not anymore." Mom's lips parted in disbelief. Dad's eyes darkened. Rachel scoffed, the sound sharp enough to cut. I stepped back, the tile floor slick beneath my sneakers, and grabbed my coat. The night air outside was sharp, carrying the metallic scent of impending rain. For the first time, the world beyond our house felt wide enough for my own voice. I walked away, Grandma's bracelet cool against my wrist, a small circle of courage I could carry into the unknown. That night, with my heart pounding and my hands finally steady, I knew I wasn't coming back. Those first years on my own tasted like black coffee and grit. I rented a studio apartment above a laundromat on the north side of Chicago, where the hum of dryers became my midnight lullaby. The place smelled faintly of detergent and old plaster, but it was mine. By day, I worked the temp job that barely covered rent, answering phones in a beige cubicle where the fluorescent lights flickered like impatient thoughts. By night, I devoured every free webinar and city college class I could afford, learning the language of real estate finance. Numbers soothed me. They were steady when people were not. I remember the night I met Linda Carraway, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, the kind of woman who made boardrooms listen. She caught me scribbling property calculations on a coffee-stained napkin during an after-hours networking event. "You think in square footage and potential, don't you?" she said, a knowing smile tugging at her lips. I blinked, embarrassed. "I guess I do." Good, she said, sliding her card across the table. Call me. The market rewards people who see what others overlook. Under Linda's guidance, I learned to spot undervalued buildings and negotiate like my future depended on it, because it did. There were nights I came home with my shoulders aching, my eyes raw from spreadsheets, only to face the quiet apartment and the whisper of doubt. You'll never escape their expectations. But small victories built momentum. The first time I closed a deal, a 3-unit brownstone I'd found languishing on a foreclosure list, I celebrated with a single cupcake and a bottle of grocery store champagne. I stared at the deed, my name printed clear and unchallenged. That brownstone became my first profitable rental, then my launch pad. Each success was a stone laid carefully on the path to independence, a second building, a modest office space, eventually a portfolio large enough to draw serious investors. Through it all, I shared only the safest fragments of my life with my parents. Phone calls stayed shallow, weather, work, how Rachel was trying again. I let them believe I was just getting by, a dutiful daughter who never quite soared. On social media, I posted photos of city sunsets, never contracts. I hid the tailored suits, the elegant office that overlooked the river, the quiet wealth I had built with my own 2 hands. Some nights, as I turned Grandma Evelyn's bracelet around my wrist, I wondered if they'd ever care to know the truth. Or if keeping it hidden was the only way to protect the hard-won peace I'd found. Either way, the life I was building no longer needed their approval. The doorbell's chime carried through the quiet elegance of my living room, a soft, dignified sound that belied the storm about to enter. I placed my wineglass on the marble counter and straightened the cuff of my cream blazer. The evening light poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, catching the muted sparkle of the river below. When I opened the door, Mom, Dad, and Rachel stood clustered like a single, uneasy shadow. Rachel's mascara looked smudged, a telltale sign of hurried tears. Dad's jaw was set, his eyes flicking over the foyer's polished oak floors and the contemporary art that lined the hallway. Nice place, Mom murmured, the compliment carrying a hint of accusation. I smiled lightly. Thanks for coming. Come in. They stepped inside, their movements hesitant, as if the air itself held secrets. I led them toward the living room, where low music threaded from a hidden speaker. The scent of jasmine candles floated warm and steady. Rachel flopped onto the cream sofa, clutching her purse. Mom says you'll help me out. Cover my debts. And since you're hardly ever here, we can move into the house. Our house. Our house. The phrase struck me like a half-forgotten bruise. I drew a slow breath. You mean this house? Mom's chin lifted. Yes. Your father and I have always thought of it as family property. You owe us for all the sacrifices we made to get you where you are. I let the silence stretch. Dad shifted uncomfortably, his gaze darting to the expansive city view. Finally, I crossed to the sideboard and lifted a folder. Inside rested the deed, my name inked in bold, definitive letters. I set it gently on the coffee table. This house, I said evenly, isn't ours. It's mine. Rachel's eyes widened. What are you talking about? I bought it. Every square foot, every pane of glass, every view you see. Paid for with my work, my investments. No one else's. Mom blinked, as though the words refused to land. Dad opened his mouth, then closed it again. I continued, my voice calm but unyielding. I own 3 other buildings across the city. This isn't a temporary apartment. It's the result of years of long nights and choices you never asked about. Rachel's purse slid from her lap to the carpet. You never said. No, I agreed softly. I didn't. The air thickened with a silence more eloquent than any accusation. I caught my reflection in the glass window, a woman standing straight, the silver glint of Grandma Evelyn's bracelet catching the dying light. Mom finally spoke, her voice brittle. We only wanted you to help your sister. Family. Family helps family. I finished, echoing the words Dad had thrown at me years ago. Yes, I remember. And I will help, but not the way you think. Their eyes fixed on me, Rachel's pleading, Dad's uncertain. Mom's carefully blink. I folded my arms, letting the quiet river of my own strength carry me forward. The balance had shifted, and we all knew it. I stayed standing while they sat, the city lights beginning to glitter behind me like a quiet constellation. For the first time in years, I felt taller than the room itself. "I'm willing to help Rachel," I said, keeping my voice even, "but only if she agrees to my terms." "And you both," I looked at Mom and Dad. "Need to hear them too." Rachel bristled. "Terms? I just need—" "You need a plan," I interrupted gently but firmly. "Here's what it looks like. You'll meet with a financial counselor I know. You'll get a job, any job, and stick to a budget for 6 months. I'll cover only the counseling fees, not the debt itself. That's your responsibility." Her lips parted, but no words came. I turned to my parents. "And you too, if you want my help to mean something, you'll stop enabling. No more covering late payments or making excuses. If Rachel misses a payment, she faces the consequence. This is her chance to build her own life, not borrow mine." Dad's jaw tightened, a muscle ticking as he considered. Mom looked down at her clasped hands, the faint tremor of someone who isn't used to being challenged. "You can't just," Mom began. "I can," I said softly, "because I've built this. And because helping someone isn't rescuing them, it's giving them the tools to rescue themselves." Rachel's eyes filled, the defiance fading to something raw. "And if I do all that," she whispered, "then, when you've proven you can carry your own weight, I'll match your final payment. Consider it an investment in the woman you're becoming." For a long moment, only the muted hum of the city filled the room. Dad finally exhaled, the sound almost a surrender. Maybe that's fair." Mom lifted her gaze. "We just wanted you girls to stay close." I softened, the old hurt still there, but no longer sharp. Closeness doesn't come from debts or guilt. It comes from respect. The silver bracelet around my wrist caught the light, Grandma Evelyn's quiet wisdom ringing in memory. "Your worth isn't measured by what you sacrifice." I reached out, touching Rachel's shoulder. "This isn't punishment, Ratch. It's a beginning. For all of us." She nodded once, a small, tentative motion. And in that quiet moment, the power dynamic that had ruled our family for decades finally shifted into something that looked a little more like hope. 3 months later, the first hint of spring laced the Chicago air, a softer light glinting off the river, a breeze that smelled faintly of thawing earth. I leaned against the railing of my balcony, a mug of coffee warming my palms, and listened to the city waking beneath me. Downstairs, Rachel's laughter drifted from the guest suite I'd let her use during the counseling period. She had a job now, entry-level at a small design firm, and a spreadsheet on her laptop that tracked every cent she owed. Last night, she'd shown it to me with a quiet pride I hadn't seen since we were kids. Mom and Dad visited often, but differently now. They no longer arrived with subtle demands or veiled comparisons. Instead, they brought Sunday casseroles and asked about my projects, really listening when I spoke. Even Dad, who once measured success only in sacrifice, had started sharing stories of the volunteer work he'd taken up at the local shelter. I turned the silver bracelet around my wrist, the delicate chain glinting like a sliver of moonlight. Grandma Evelyn's words, the ones that had once felt like a private prayer, were now an open truth. "Your worth isn't measured by what you sacrifice." I sipped my coffee, letting the warmth spread through me. The pain of those early years hadn't vanished, but it no longer defined me. It had shaped the woman who could stand her ground, love without losing herself, and give help without surrendering freedom. Rachel stepped onto the balcony, a soft scarf looped around her neck. "Guess what?" she said, eyes bright. "I just made my 3rd debt payment on time." I smiled, feeling the old ache dissolve into something lighter. "I'm proud of you." She slipped an arm around my waist, leaning into the quiet city morning. For the first time in a long while, our closeness wasn't built on guilt or rescue. It was built on choice. I looked out at the skyline, glass and steel catching the pink edge of sunrise, and breathed in the life I'd fought to build. My parents demanded I pay my sister's debts and let her move into their house. I thought, a slow, wry smile curving my lips. But in the end, I gave them something better, a family rebuilt on respect. And with that, I tightened my grip on the warm mug and the silver bracelet, a quiet promise glinting in the dawn. I would never measure my worth by what I was forced to give away.